All right, buckle up everyone. Time to dive deep into something truly mind-bending.
Sounds fun.
Today it's time travel paradoxes, and more specifically, those twisty-turny things called time loops.
Ooh, yeah. Always a good one for getting the brain cells firing.
We're basing this deep dive on a fascinating educational article, which, get this, was inspired by a video called The Time Travel Paradox You've Never Heard of.
Okay, I'm intrigued already.
The article asks a question that just about melts your brain. Could something exist purely because of itself?
Whoa. Yeah, that's going to take some unpacking.
Right. Like, where do you even start with that?
Well, I guess the first step is to wrap our heads around what a time loop actually is. It's like this self-sustaining cycle of events where basically cause and effect get all tangled up.
So like a cosmic Ouroboros, that snake
Whoa.
eating its own tail.
Exactly. Except instead of scales, it's events. And trying
Yeah.
to find the beginning is like, well, impossible.
Because every ending is also a beginning.
Precisely. And the article uses some really cool pop culture examples to illustrate this, which I always appreciate.
Oh, I love when they do that.
Right. Like, remember that scene in Back to the Future where Marty McFly plays Johnny B. Good?
Of course. Classic scene. He's up on stage, rocking out, and a young Chuck Berry is in the audience. Totally mesmerized.
And the kicker is Chuck Berry is inspired by Marty's performance to write that very song.
Oh, hold on. Marty only knows the song because of Chuck Berry.
Boom. There's your paradox.
It's like a chicken and egg situation,
Right.
but with time travel thrown in for good measure.
So who really wrote the song?
Well, according to the time loop logic, neither of them did, really, or maybe both of them did. It's this closed loop where the song seems to exist without a genuine origin point. It just...
Mind blown. So we've got events looping around, but then the article introduces the concept of a gin particle, and this is where things get even weirder.
Right. So a gin particle is an object caught in a time loop. Think about it.
Yeah.
An object that only exists within the loop. So it has no point of creation outside of that cycle. Like it wasn't built or made or anything.
Nope. It just perpetually exists within the loop.
Okay, help me out here. Can you give me a real-world example? Or, I guess, a movie world example?
Sure. Think about that locket in the movie Somewhere in Time. Christopher Reeve's character gives it to Jane Seymour's character in the past, and then she gives it back to him in the future.
Oh, yeah. I see it now.
The locket itself only exists within that specific time loop. It has no origin outside of it. It becomes a gin particle.
Okay, that's wild. But this is all just fun movie stuff, right? Surely real scientists aren't buying into all this time loop business.
Well, actually, they are exploring whether similar loops could exist in reality, and it involves some pretty heavy-duty scientific concepts.
Hit me with it.
One of the big ones is something called Closed Timelike Curves, or CTCs for short.
CTCs. Catchy. What are those exactly? Like shortcuts through time?
Haha, I wish. No, CTCs are theoretical solutions to Einstein's equations of general relativity.
Ah, Einstein. Okay, so we're talking serious science here.
Very serious. Imagine CTCs as like tunnels in space-time.
Tunnels. Okay, I'm listening.
And these tunnels, in theory, could allow for travel to the past, but, and this is a massive but, we haven't actually observed them in reality. They're still very much theoretical.
So maybe hold off on booking that time travel vacation for now.
Yeah, probably wise. But, even if CTCs don't pan out, there's another avenue that might support the idea of gin particles and time loops. Quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics. Isn't that the super weird, super tiny world of atoms and stuff?
Exactly. And at
Yeah.
that level, the rules are very different from the everyday world we experience. There are some interpretations of quantum mechanics that suggest the possibility of time loops existing, but at the subatomic level.
Well, maybe no sending humans back in time. But maybe a tiny, tiny particle could get caught in a loop.
Potentially. It's all very theoretical at this point, but the fact that scientists are even considering these possibilities is pretty mind-blowing.
I'm starting to get a bit of a headache just thinking about all this. Say, the article also talked about the connection between science fiction and real science, didn't it?
It did. It pointed out how science fiction often draws inspiration from real scientific concepts, which I think is really cool.
Like how? Give me an example.
Well, think about the flux capacitor from Back to the Future. Obviously, it's a completely made-up device, but the name itself plays on a real scientific concept.
The flux. That rings a bell.
Yeah, in physics, flux refers to the flow of something through a surface or area. It's a key concept in things like electromagnetism.
So the writers took a real scientific term and turned it into a time travel gizmo.
Well,
Clever.
exactly. It shows how science fiction can sometimes spark curiosity about real science, get people thinking about these concepts in a fun, engaging way.
So pop culture gets us imagining, but what does real science actually say about whether all this time loop stuff could be real?
Well, the short answer is we don't know for sure. Time loops are mathematically possible according to current theories, but that's a far cry from proving they actually exist.
Right, right. And what about those crazy paradoxes that time loops create? Do they somehow get resolved within the loop, or do they just become even more mind-boggling?
That's a tough one. Some theories suggest that time loops might actually have built-in mechanisms for resolving paradoxes, like ensuring consistency within the loop.
So like some kind of cosmic autocorrect.
Uh-huh, kind of. But other theories say that paradoxes might just be an inherent part of time loops.
Meaning we might just have to accept that our brains aren't equipped to fully grasp the complexities of time travel.
Maybe. It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
Totally. What really struck me from all this is how these concepts challenge our fundamental understanding of cause and effect.
I agree. If everything is predetermined within a loop, does that mean free will is an illusion?
Whoa, heavy stuff.
Right. And if an object exists only within a time loop, what does that even mean for the concept of existence itself?
It's enough to make your head spin.
Absolutely. What was your biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
I think what really hit me is the philosophical implications of all this. It's one thing to imagine a time loop as a fun plot device, but to actually consider that our reality might be made up of interconnected loops and our actions predetermined within them. That's a whole other level of mind-blowing. What about you?
For me, it's the fact that we as humans are even capable of grappling with these incredibly complex and abstract concepts, whether it's through rigorous scientific equations or imaginative storytelling. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible, and I find that incredibly inspiring.
It's like our minds are these little time-traveling machines constantly exploring the vastness of the universe and the very nature of reality itself.
Beautifully put.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought to ponder. If you could send one object back in time to create a gin particle loop, what would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Think about it. It might reveal more about your own perception of time and existence than you realize. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride, and until next time, keep exploring the infinite possibilities.
See you next time.